Um, cool. All right, well, I'm going to bowl in. The first question that someone has asked is that they've heard that the work commitment is really, really big, and they've asked about how do students cope with that work commitment. So I'll just talk to you about the two areas of work. So there's one. The initial area is we've got a preparation part of the program. You have to do the preparation part before you can do boot camp. And as it sounds, preparation is a lot about preparing yourself for the very deep dive that boot camp takes you into software development. But yeah, so and we've done a few changes in that preparation recently. So previously, preparation was a 9-week program. Now it's flexible, so you can take as long as you like in phase 0. What that preparation phase. That doesn't mean just meandering your way through it and taking as long as you want. What it means is that you decide at the start, I'm going to commit 5 hours a week to this, and I'm going to take 6 months, or I'm going to commit full-time 40 hours a week, and I'm going to do it in 6 weeks, or anything in between. But what we're asking students to do is to commit to a certain amount each week. You might have a couple of weeks break in which you've got a wedding or a trip planned, but that you are sticking to that plan. It doesn't mean taking as long as you want and just meandering through it, because we have to plan cohorts, and we really want you to build into a routine. But what does that look like? That looks very much like taking yourself through a number of different sort of materials. So we use a lot of third-party resources at Dev Academy. So things like Codecamp, Team Treehouse, and Code Academy, because there are some beautiful programs there. We've added things to it, and we've curated those so that you have a journey through that material that is supported by a phase 0 teacher and some of our staff that actually builds the foundations of knowledge that you need for bootcamp. And yeah, look, it works really well. There are 9 modules in that preparation, and we expect that if you're taking it over 3 months, that you should be spending at least 20 hours a week. So we've had people do full-time work and phase 0, and they have done it over 3 months, and it's been tough. Like, it's been really full-on work. I think over 4 months, and it's much easier. You're spending maybe 15 hours a week on it, and so on. But it does depend on how much exposure you've had to coding. Those folks that have been exposed to a lot of coding before can get through phase 0 relatively quickly. It's not something you get A's in. It's designed to have been done remotely as well. That doesn't mean it has to be. So we have people doing it from our Wellington campus, which is where I am now, and also from our Auckland campus, and they've found that much more collaborative. They've gone through much faster, and they've enjoyed it. But if you are remote, we've designed it to be done remotely on your own laptop with an internet connection and taking yourself through it. And yep, there's exercises, there's things you build, there's there's a lot of reading and going through different materials, and you'll be coding a lot in phase 0, not building a huge amount, and what you do build actually often you're not using ongoing or building on, as we say. So yeah, that's a little bit about phase 0 and the commitment there. The commitment, and look, the hardest thing about phase 0 is getting it done, is organizing yourself and making sure that you're committed to the work and getting it done each week, not doing Netflix and gaming and going out with friends and so on, because there are always distractions. And if you can just have the self-discipline to get yourself through it, you'll do very well in that. That is what people find the most difficult thing in phase 0, is getting that work done. Bootcamp's very different. There is much more structure. You cannot do anything else whilst in bootcamp. If you're a parent, you can be a parent, and of course, there are parental commitments there, but you have to be with us between 8:30 and 5:30 each day, even as a parent. And that can be really, really tough. And also, our students outside of those hours are working. So right now, if we looked out onto the floor, there's going to be a dozen students out there working on our current cohort, and we're at 6 o'clock. Now, they don't have to be on site, but there is at least 3 to 4 hours each day of revision work that you have to do. Because the workload is so intensive on boot camp, in the day with teachers around, you have to be reviewing this work in the evenings in your own time and in the weekends. I'm advising now that students, if you're not spending 70 hours a week on this material coding, then you won't get through the work. Now that's a very, very heavy workload, and it's intensive, and we don't recommend that long term. Do bear in mind this is a 9-week program, and we are taking on something that's close to impossible. Therefore, we are pushing you to the limits physically and mentally, but we don't endorse that ongoing. Also, bear in mind that many of you are dropping incomes and you're going into debt to be here, and it's very, very expensive. So we have to condense all of this process into 9 weeks, and it's close to impossible. Therefore, we are asking you to step up and do nothing else but dedicate your time to this. It is a very, very tough program, but if you do that workload and you get through this, you will be work ready. Another thing I'm also talking to students about is if you don't do this, then after you graduate, I think for every hour you miss on boot camp, it's at least 5 hours post-graduation to make up for that time you've lost. And that starts to get months and months of work. And I think it's really, really telling on how long it takes people to get work and their commitment to boot camp. So I think the more commitment you make to boot camp, the faster you go into employment. So that's intensive. Look, let me explain a day at Dev Academy. So on the boot camp, we do have a timetable. So 8:30, folks are coming in, getting breakfast, checking in with the group, and just grounding themselves in the school. At 8:45, we have an accountability group or some form of formal check-in that mirrors probably what you'd see in an agile team. What went well on the previous day, what didn't go so well. We also have a reflective question of the day. Think about your eating habits and how has that contributed to your learning, or think about some feedback you have received and how did that feel to receive that feedback. Or maybe it's something around how is journaling going and how is it contributing to your retention of information or how you organize your learning. Things like this. So a lot of reflections in the morning on the previous day or previous week's learning. Then we bowl into what we call a lecture. It's much more like a live coding session with your lead teacher. They will be introducing a new topic that you haven't seen before. There'll be lots of Q&A around it. So, why are you doing it this way? We were told that way, and lots of Q&A, and really drilling into this new tool set that you've never seen before. And these lectures are vibrant times and great times to ask lots and lots of questions, but probably not. And you're not going to become an expert in a lecture. So after you've seen a teacher go through this, the use of this tool, and they've pulled it to bits and lots of questions, you get handed this tool and you get sent out onto the floor to pair up with another someone else from your cohort, and you're always switching your pairs. So you pair with everyone in your cohort 5 times, a lot, and you're going and building something. So you're using these tools in an application, in something. Maybe it's a sandboxed environment that we've created, maybe it's a previous project that you've started, but you have to pick these tools up, you have to pull them to bits, and you have to use them. If you don't, the wrong neural pathways are traveled. You need to have these neural pathways that start with the tips of your fingers and come into your brain. This is really, really important in this craft, so we do a lot of this. Now look, we have good sized lunches, either an hour and a half or 2 hours. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we actually put on yoga in our office here. It's one of the few things that we can do in an office environment that's physical, so we put that on for free. But we strongly encourage folks to get out and about, to get exercise. The reason we have these good lunches is so people can get good food and good exercise in the day. We are fairly sedentary at EDA, effectively in front of a screen. We're very, very conscious of this. So we have a strong encouragement to get up, get out of your seat and get active, particularly at lunch, but also in the day. Lots of water, lots of going to the toilet, getting up and literally physically moving. So we're really endorsing that sort of culture. At 2 o'clock, we have another live coding session or a lecture. Again, a new topic gets introduced. Following that, there's a new amount of floor time and getting into build and pairing and lots of collaboration on the floor. Do bear in mind that from 9 till 5, you have at least a teacher present, often 2 or even 3. So there is a lot of teacher support there. You will always have a lead teacher around being able to ask a question to, but there are also going to be teacher aides and teacher supports there as well. So we have a lot of teacher support for you on bootcamp. Yeah, look, so let me think. At the end of the day, we close at 5 o'clock. We have a closing circle again. There's a little bit of reflection on the learning at the end of the day. And then after that closing circle is finished at 5:15 or 5:30, students are then planning their evenings. And you might get 3 or 4 students coming together saying, hey, I really missed out on this aspect of what we learned today. I'm really stuck on that. Anyone want a jam session with me? I want to take myself through that material again, redo the exercise or do the stretch material. And you might find 3 or 4, or maybe even everyone wants to mob with you on that. It's a great way to learn. You might find a couple of people are teaching, everyone else is listening, and those folks that are teaching are really building a very strong neural pathway when they're actually teaching what they know. So we try and get as much of this happening as possible so students really are embedding knowledge. But that reflective work in the evenings is vital, and I mentioned that before. Cool. I'm getting a couple of questions here in the live chat, which is great. I'm gonna jump onto those now because yeah, good questions. So what, Matt, you're asking, are you going to be NCEA approved, and when are you expecting to? Good question, and one that is at the front of mind. So we are in that process right now. We've been in it for a long time though, and that process takes a while. Getting NCEA approval and funding and the ability for you to get a loan has been on the cards for at least 2 years, but we still don't have that. And to be honest, the unfortunate answer is we don't know when. We will get it though. We're determined. We have to. We know that a lot of you struggle to pay those fees. It's very, very expensive to come here, considering well, $11,000 is a lot of money, and if you can't get a loan, then that's a huge barrier. But we just don't know. I'd love for it to be tomorrow, but it's yeah, we just don't know. So the moment we do, we're going to let folks know. It's highly likely it will be. I'd be very surprised if by 2019 we don't have that ability, NCEA approval and so on. If you're interested to know what sort of level our program is, whether NCEA level, we've talked to NZQA about this, and it's hard to put it at a level. It's there's certainly, we regard this as an apprenticeship on steroids. That's regarded then at a sort of a level 8 practicum sort of level. However, we are a classroom environment. And this is teaching. So it's probably around 6, 7, 8, that sort of level. It's certainly not a 9. It's not master's, PhD sort of level. But yes, 6, 7, 8. It's probably around there, and a mix of everything. But to be honest, we don't really fit into the standard system. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Nat. Then there's another question here. 9-week program is the shortest term program. Yes, so our 9-week program or our 9-week bootcamp is the shortest we've got. And that's short considering what we're teaching you. We are also, this is our only product as well. We only have one product. It is a web development bootcamp that that teaches you software development using web technologies. So look, in the future, when we do get a bit more support and when we do get a bit more stability around funding and so on and growth, we will look at other products. But at this stage, 9 weeks is the shortest program. Benjamin, you're asking, do students that have a background in coding generally find it easier to get work after completing? Yeah. No, we don't. We don't see that. Students that have a background in coding generally go further in their technical understanding. That is true. I would say that they have more opportunity in the market, in the workplace, because they won't be getting a straight graduate position. Bear in mind, we have had a number of people getting very senior positions out of Dev Academy. We've had a good dozen of our graduates hitting over the $100,000 mark on their first job post-graduation. Obviously, they're not graduates, but do bear in mind, we are attracting career movers. So yeah, look, if you've got a background in coding and you're thinking about doing our program, it might be for you. Best thing to do is to come and have a chat to me, get in touch, and sort of, we can answer that specifically. But to give you an example, we've had a number of folks that are trained in technologies that aren't being valued now, Java, COBOL, Pascal, Fortran, things like this, and come into this program to almost use it as a refresher. But we've also seen folks that are interested in coding in a different way. Maybe they have been much more mechanical or machine-like in the way in which they've coded, more followed orders and executed code, rather than designed and developed and collaborated on a creative solution, which is much more how we're coding now. So the coding that we're doing here is much more problem-based. It's much more creative. We're really interested in meeting a user's needs and developing software for a modern sort of competitive market in software development. So that's what we're going towards. But no, I wouldn't like to say that it's as cut and dried as saying that folks with more technical background do better in the job market. I think there's more to it than that. And to be honest, we see a number of folks that are absolute newbies to this, getting scooped up or picking up great work after graduation. But look, if you're a sysadmin or you're a DBA, you've got probably a lot of familiarity with the tech space. I would imagine that you are picking up a higher salary and more responsibility on graduation. And again, we've had a number of folks like that. Again, a lot of designers, project managers, project coordinators that are already in the tech space. Yeah, sysadmins, DBAs, DevOps, testers. These folks are wanting to transition into more of a creative dev role. Yeah, they do well here, and they do get work. They do get good jobs. Cool. Hope that answers it. Keep the questions coming, folks. I'm going to go back to the list. Cool. The next question actually asks us about our mission. What is our mission from the outset? Yeah, we had our mission primarily is to be able to train folks, train some of the best talent in the market, to be able to help the tech sector grow with exceptional talent. And we still communicate very, very heavily with the sector. We run a lot of sessions with companies so that we know that we are at the forefront of technology, so that we know that we are servicing them well. We follow up on our graduates and the work in which they get. And we ask employers, how have you found that graduate? Is there something that you've noticed that we could improve on our ability to attract and deliver what we do? So we're very, very focused on success being great graduates picking up great work and growing that sector, and those employers coming back to us saying, well done, we really value these folks. Early on, we started to get feedback from some companies, and this beautiful quote came up of, the graduates coming out of EDA are going to be the people that will lead our organizations in five years' time. And to us, that was a really good affirmation that we're setting out to do what we wanted. Building and growing exceptional people, but also we attract a very diverse and a very passionate person into the sector, and that's what we want. It's a really tough program, and you need a lot of passion to be here. Effectively, those folks are really good at going into the market and creating creating a huge impact. So that's our biggest mission first and foremost. But then when Joshua and I were starting to think about, well, how are we going to do this? There were some other things that we wanted to tackle at the same time. One of them was being able to increase diversity in tech. You'll notice that the tech sector is very, very interested in this themselves. Not so much 4 years ago when we were planning this, but still then, but it's grown since then. So, seeing, the technical revolution, it will never be a revolution if it's just a small part in society. We want this to be covered with everyone. We're also seeing our working environments change hugely. And there is a lot of people in the workforce that are feeling disenfranchised, undervalued, or devalued, and they're looking for their next thing to be empowered. So we are very interested in empowering everyone and anyone, not just in the cities, but in the regions, not just specific demographics, but all demographics. So that was another mission, to increase that diversity and to offer an exquisite livelihood to everyone. We had a specific idea of taking what we do in the cities out into the regions. Again, we're under-resourced and we don't have the ability to do that yet, but that's part of our mission as well. And the last one was to actually transform the education sector. Everyone in our organisation is usually attracted to that at the fundamental side as well. That's what makes us get out of bed often in the morning, is the fact that we're disappointed in where our education system is at, and we want to improve on it at all levels, but particularly at a tertiary and a workplace level. It's important. I think it's important for New Zealand to improve on that, for us to be have exquisite livelihoods, and I think we are relying on our ability to innovate ourselves into the future and to innovate ourselves away from primary production, which is, we can see the writing on the wall with that now, but we haven't thought about really innovating in our education space, which often catalyzes those changes. So this is something dear to Dev Academy as well, is really transforming and improving our education sector. And I must admit, I'm really excited and confident in some of the policy that we are seeing in the education space. I also think there's some amazing pilots and ideas that are starting to come out of some wonderful people like Francis Valentine is someone that we hold an incredibly high regard and as a leader in this space, and someone that inspires our organisation hugely. So look, those are things, and look, to be honest, we've got a lot of plans in this space to do more than just what we're doing now, but it's early days. We're just getting going and just building momentum. So yeah, watch this space. So that's a lot about our mission. You'll see on our website that we've got when we've thought about what is exceptional talent, we went out to industry and talked to industry about what makes a good developer a great developer. That was a really important question that we asked, and we thought we knew the answer, but when we asked it, it was really reinforced in a slightly different way. There were a number of things that came back from employers that surprised us. We had this idea that we were looking for something quite special when we were hiring. So Joshua and I were hiring software developers to work on different pieces of work within Enspiral, but also out of. And we were always looking for passionate folks that could collaborate well, that had the ability to learn a lot and really work well in a team. And we thought, yeah, we're a bit unusual because we're interested in a high level of collaboration and we're really interested in social impact and so on. So we thought that we were different to companies like Trade Me and Xero that were interested in much more of a, get the job done, sharp code, beautiful coders. In fact, when we went out to talk to those industry, sort of hiring managers, CTOs, CEOs, they were looking for exactly the same thing. The ability, passion was trumped everything. We want passionate people. They said, we often get folks that just want a job. We don't have jobs. We have these environments that need people that just absolutely love what they do and that are incredibly passionate about growing amazing software and doing this with other folks. And that was always the first thing was I'm looking for passion in my candidates walking through the door. The second thing, which surprised us hugely, was the ability to learn. Was the next thing. You have to be able to learn. This is a craft that changes so fast. You have to be able to constantly learn. In fact, 80% of what you know today will have to be replaced within 3 years' time. So if you can't learn, we won't hire you because it's really hard to teach you how to learn. And this is something that we focus on hugely. That surprised us. It was right up there as the second thing. The next thing was the ability to work in a team, but specifically the ability to motivate yourself and others and negotiate with yourself and others. It might seem like a bit of a joke, but it's not. The ability to negotiate with yourself is almost understanding who you are and how you relate with others and then who they are. So it's really it's an integral part in working with others, collaborating with others, and actually, again, it hits back onto that learning aspect. So being able to understand who you are, getting feedback, working with others, and then growing on that, growing yourself. There were other things there too around ability to listen and communicate, ability to empathize, and so on. Interestingly enough, the ability to cut beautiful code, refactor beautiful code, these sorts of, that was sixth. Often it was right ranked down because that sort of stuff can be learned in time. Now, with all those other qualities, people were saying those top six, what some people call soft skills, we call them human skills. Those top six human skills, that's that moldable piece of clay. You've heard people say, "Oh, just give me this moldable piece of clay, and I will make them a great performer in our organization." Well, that is the moldable piece of clay. So that's what we're attracting, that's what we're focusing, and that's a huge focus in our philosophy and what our mission was to grow people in that way. So look, I hope that's given some context around what our mission was. The next question is, can you describe the average graduate? It's such a broad question. Our graduates come from all walks of life. We've only got people for 9 weeks. It's a very, very short time. So when people turn up on day one of boot camp, they're already 80% there. They've already got all of these skills under their belts. Their career history, their education already, their life already. So people are turning up with an amazing set of skills. What we are doing is we're really enhancing them. We're using these skills and adapting them to the tech sector. So there's a lot around how to use these skills in this new, exciting, collaborative, creative environment. And also, obviously, we're building this huge technical foundation of this craft and also building that so that you can show your portfolio what you've built to an employer. And this is a big part of what we do. So the average graduate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe some groupings of graduates. Most of the people that come to EDA by far have a degree, but not all. And that doesn't mean you get work over others, but a lot of folks have a degree. Most people have a degree that's non-technical. Arts is a classic one, laws, psych, philosophy, even, a lot of humanities and so on around, art history and so on. So music's another big one. We see musicians coming in here, either professional amateur musicians, or maybe people that have got musical degrees, but have coupled that with something like laws or so on. So we see a lot of people coming in with a degree, and they're into their career or they're postgraduates, and they're actually looking for a finishing program so that they become hireable. It's very common to see folks serving you coffee with an arts degree because there's really, it doesn't lead on to a specific pointy job, and there's not much, be able to get a job out there is difficult unless you've got something that really gives you competitive advantage. So people are coming here either as career movers, maybe they've been in policy or practicing law in some form, or maybe they've been in education and they're coming here to transition, or they're finishing off their degree to be able to get a job in software development. We see other graduates that are maybe they are technical already, but they're outside of the software development space. So maybe they're in project management technically, so they're a technical project manager, or maybe they are in the periphery of software development. Maybe it's, as I mentioned before, testing, DevOps, or security, or something like this, and they want to get more into software development, that creative space. Or maybe they are in an area of software development that they're not enjoying, and they want to get more into more modern technology. So we see a good amount of people in that space. We see a number of people that are in careers already, that are underemployed or unemployed, that want to get into better employment. And this is a good portion of our students as well. And they're coming into here to really transition into open doors in the tech sector. And this program obviously opens those doors. So there is no real average graduate. They're all very, very different. In fact, we plotted all of the age ranges recently on a graph, and the average age is actually 25, which I thought was quite young, but there's a huge range of 23 to 35. That's a big block, a big segment in the graph, but the range in total is from 17 to 66, so a huge range there. And to be honest, we see folks, you know, from all walks of life, and they're getting, yeah, they're getting work at the end of the day. They are, you know, we're always observant of who's getting work and who is not, and who's finding it tough, and we haven't found specific correlations. And we can't, you know, we can't say, oh, if people walk in with this, they're definitely going to get that type of job. It's not quite like that. But if you have got a lot of those things that I mentioned, you know, passion, an ability to learn, a desire to work with others, and so on, and you're really keen to be here, that's what you need. That's what you need to do well. By the way, I just had someone ask me when the next cohort starts, and we've got a cohort that starts mid-March, 19th of March. That's the boot camp. You can still get into that boot camp in both Wellington and Auckland. This is probably, you'd have to start relatively soon with your preparation to be able to prepare well enough for boot camp. So do enroll now if you are interested, because you know, the more time that goes by, the less time you have to prepare. After March, there is also one at the end of May, 28th of May, that starts as well. And look, if you've got questions and queries after this webinar, get in touch with Jack and myself. We're really keen to have a phone call, a Skype call with you to answer any questions. But I'm going to carry on. We've got a few more here. What qualifications would I come out with, and would it matter not being NZQA approved from an HR perspective when applying for jobs? Really good question. And the answer is very, very occasionally it does make a difference. So you don't get a qualification coming in, out of Dev Academy, not yet. And we hope, well, we're actually, us personally, we're not that interested in the qualification. We're much more interested in the financial barrier that you have in coming here. But, and to be honest, a lot of the rhetoric now is that qualifications are being devalued hugely, like the degree is just not valued as it was. I agree with that. I just don't think it is as valuable as it was. But yeah, look, from time to time, we do see companies saying, oh no, we want someone that's got, you have to have a computer science, but it's very rare. And what we are seeing now more and more is organizations actually coming back to us saying, well, not all our roles will be filled by Dev Academy students, but the majority of our software development roles are open to them. But we might have one or two that are specialists around the science of software development. Maybe they are more mathematical and analytical in nature, and that's what we require. But it is unusual, and there's only probably been half a dozen times where I've really come across that in the market. So we don't see that as a barrier at all. But then again, I am doing a lot of education out there in the market. So if folks haven't heard about us, let's say a graduate goes out and said, oh, look, I've talked to this company. They don't really know about Dev Academy. They're making a series of assumptions, but it's, you know, they probably need to talk to you because I really would like to work for them, and they're not really understanding what you do. And I might have a conversation with their HR team, CTO or hiring manager, and just say, look, this is what we're about. And that often people get quite interested in what we're doing. There's a lot of Q&A, and I'll sit down with them, and after we finish this, they're often really pumped about what we're doing. But do bear in mind, we aren't replacing a computer science degree. We're not focused on computer science. We're not interested in research, and we're not interested in this as an academic pursuit, which is what you're getting at university. This is a practical programming course. It's for, you know, actually doing software development and coding in an organization. It's much more aligned towards engineering than science. And in fact, we consciously teach it in that way. I believe that software development does not sit in the science area. I think it spans the arts and the more of the engineering aspect and the sciences. So I think it's got aspects of mathematics, aspects of engineering, and aspects of creative and arts. I think it really does encompass all of those. At the heart of that is people. We build software for people. So understanding the psychology and understanding our users is incredibly important. We also build this with people, with a diverse range of people. So software developers have to empathize hugely with designers and testers. They have to empathize with the coder that comes along in 2 years' time and codes and builds a feature on that code that they built 2 years before. So you know, there is a ton of actual you know, maturity in this sort of area. It's not certainly not a science. It's much more than that. When would be the next dates for the student tasters? Tech for a day. That's a good question. I'm going to come back to that because I've got someone who's helping out with me. So what you're interested in is the next day in the life. And the next day in the life, we have booked that in, but I'm about to find out. Here we go. So the next day in the life is on the 23rd of February, and we are running one in both Auckland and in Wellington. So the next day in the life is on the 23rd of February in both Auckland and Wellington. And that is a day in which you can come into Dev Academy and you can test it out. See if it is for you. You get to feel what we do here. You get to see us in action. You get a bit of a taster for what it's going to be like, so that you can make a better decision. Now that's a Friday, the 23rd of Feb. If you are interested, let us know. Get in touch with us. We've advertised it on our website. We've advertised it on our meetup group, and we will post a comment in the YouTube video with a link so that you can register for that. In fact, Jack might do that as we talk now and post it in the comments there. But you will find it on our website. If you just go to news and events, and you'll be able to find that there. Okay, let's carry on with the questions. Would the course include app building? So the whole course is app building. You are constantly building web applications. These days, there is no clear delineation, or there's a bleeding of, you know, mobile and web apps. I mean, you may have upgraded your phone recently and noticed that your phone does not download a huge number of apps as it used to, and the apps that you are downloading are much lighter than they were previously. This is because that there is less dependency on a native application. There is much more integrated sort of applications out there, so much more web-based programs. So we constantly build apps. We are always building them, and often building mobile first. So we are thinking about you know, how responsive they are and how, you know, what technology is going to be interacting with the software. So yep, everything we do is you know, building web apps, mobile apps, and so on. What types of people struggle on the program? Yeah, that's a good question. What types of people struggle on the program? Look, if you have never done anything like this before, and I'm talking about very intensive hands-on learning, doing that very closely with other people, and doing this in a discipline that you've never touched before, you're going to find it tough. But I don't think there's anyone that breezes through. I think everyone finds it bloody hard, to be honest, but for different reasons. And one week might be different to the next. The workload is intense. We create a certain amount of vulnerability in you as well, because that's a great way to learn. So you will be challenged on multiple levels, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But I don't think there are specific people that don't make it or can't make it. I think if you've got a huge ego, you won't find that serves you here. We don't value the ego. We're very happy for folks to come with it. It's just that it doesn't attract the attention that it might in your classical societal environment, mainly because it's not conducive to a good learning environment, and it's not valued in the market. So we get you to be at one with your ego sort of effectively, and take a look at it and go, cool, is that ego serving me? And we repurpose often that energy into that ego. With creating vulnerability, often what that means is bringing down those protective facades like ego as well, because this is really conducive to learning, and just also being much more comfortable with who you are and finding your identity. and just being much more comfortable in your own skin. So folks that struggle on the program, we've had people with huge social phobias and anxieties. I mean, they would struggle in any environment, but here we want to nourish those people, to say, look, this is a welcoming place for anyone and everyone. So be here, be yourself, and feel free not to conform to what society sort of says we have to conform to. Those folks flourish here at times, and we've had something really heartwarming. I think if you are used to a way of learning in which all the information is provided to you, you do a test and you do well on that test and you move on, that is the opposite of what we do. We don't provide you with any answers. We all ask you more questions than you have questions for us. So our teachers are trekking guides. When Don, Ross, or Joshua, or Harrison or Tony is being, you're saying, hey, why are you doing it this? Or, how do I do something this way? Or why would I do it this way? There's a lot of questions coming back of, well, what have you done so far? And what is this function meaning here? And why are you doing that? And often we're taking students through a thought process so that students are coming out of our program with a really good thought process on how to solve their own problems. It's much more about giving you the net rather than giving you the fish. And, you'll obviously know that analogy, that's a much longer term solution. But giving you context is a huge thing about a teacher, and being really a trekking guide through the code jungle. Look, I hope that's answered the question. I think there's struggling on the program and then there's struggling to find work. I want to address that now as well, because that's different. Struggling on the program might be something around self-discipline. It might be, around collaboration and so on, and just workload. But finding a job's different. Finding a job is about selling yourself. Those folks that have the ability to sell themselves, they do better in the job market. We have had amazing software developers that have struggled to find work because they really struggle to interview or promote themselves. And I do a lot of support around that. I really, that's where I put a huge focus, is helping those people, because they should be in work just as fast as everyone else, but they're not performing as well in interviews, or they're not performing as well in a meetup, or they're not able to stick their neck out and be vulnerable in that way. So I do a lot of support there. Also, after you graduate from Dev Academy, if you don't code, you lose the skills and you won't find work. So you must continue to code post-graduation. Those folks that don't code struggle to find work as well. Something to bear in mind. In the bootcamp, are there opportunities to build your own personal project as well as group projects? Also, how is the Careers Week presented? What kind of things happen? Cool. Yep. So yes, there's a lot of projects. There's a lot of software that does get built in bootcamp, and yes, you do have an opportunity to build stuff on your own. Not much. Generally, it's with other people. Most of the software that we build in our lives is with other people. In fact, most of the commercial work is. So we do a lot of group work. There is one particular project that is a personal project that is quite a big one that you will do on your own. And yes, it can be yours. We don't take ownership of any of the software you build, and certainly not a personal project as well. So you do have a lot of flexibility on what you're building too. As long as you are learning, these important technologies and these foundation building blocks, that is absolutely vital. But yes, you do get the opportunity to do that personal project. It's a 3-week project, and it's during the middle 3 weeks of boot camp. The other group projects are at the end of each week, and again, you've got quite a bit of freedom on what you build there as well. But they are group projects. What does Careers Week look like? So Careers Week, we go through setting you up with all of the tools you need to be able to find work. CVs, cover letters, how to approach meetups, how to network, how to use LinkedIn, how to build an online presence, and a huge amount of interviewing. We do lots and lots of interview practice. So that's really, really important. In Wellington, we have a week break, and then we do Careers Week, at least a week after you graduate. In Auckland, we do it directly after you graduate, so the week following. And that's because I'm delivering it and I have to travel between the two campuses. So just bear that in mind when you're about to commit to this. We don't mind where you do Careers Week or when. So if you graduate and you want to take time off to delve deeper into the coding and come to a Careers Week in 10 weeks' time, no problem. Or if you want to go to the Auckland Careers Week to do it with a new group of people, no problem. We don't mind when or where you do it. Also, that careers support doesn't stop after Careers Week finishes. My support is there, the school support is there ongoing. You won't have much teacher time, but you will have the ability to be on site and job hunt from here, collaborate with other students and so on, collaborate with your cohort, build software with us, at least for 3 months post-graduation. If you are working on personal projects and doing contracting work, you can even rent a desk here after that 3 months. If you're still job hunting after 3 months, you're here for free. You're working very, very closely with me to find work. How much skill is required when signing up? None. That's a good thing. We take you from 0 to hero. You don't need to have done a lot of coding at all or any coding at the start. We will take you on a very, very deep dive into coding. If you haven't done any coding and you're planning on how long you're going to take, I would give yourself a good amount of time to do that preparation. Ideally, at least 4 months, if not 6, and do it really, really well. If you've got the ability to do it full time, that's great. Then you could easily do it in 3 months. But if you do that well, you'll give yourself a lot of confidence coming into boot camp. But no, you don't need to be a coder. You don't need to be mathematical. You don't need to have done anything in IT before you come here. However, if you had, yeah, that's great too. Will we be using our own devices, or will you provide devices for our use? Excuse me. So during phase 0, you will need a fairly simple computer, at least, to work on. A laptop's great, but not essential. But you'll need your own device. Can you do it on an iPad or these sorts of devices? Well, we've had folks that have, but I think it's easier on a laptop or a desktop. But you know, you don't need anything hugely flash to do that preparation. On bootcamp, we've got our own devices. You're most welcome to bring your own, but 90% of the time you'll be using our machines. They're fairly standard. We run a Linux-based system. I'd strongly encourage you in preparation to run a Linux system. Ubuntu's free, it's great, and it's a really easy platform to code on in many languages on. Māori scholarships and Women in Tech scholarships. So we have a number of Māori scholarships up for grabs at the moment. We haven't allocated all of those, so there are more available. They are worth $7,000. If you have got Māori affiliation, then please do contact us and let us know. Those $7,000 scholarships are awesome, and they're open and freely available. Do we have scholarships for women? Not to the value of $7,000. So we give anyone that's underrepresented in tech, so Māori Pacifica women, a scholarship of $500. So it brings your fees down to $10,500. Now I know that's not huge, but it's all that we can afford. And I'm very sorry. We would love to have free fees. If we did, we would be over the moon, but we're not there yet. Give us time. But that's the best we can do at the moment. Demographics, so age average, I've mentioned, average age is 25, but we've got a big range. And you know, so age is no factor in coming to Dev Academy or getting work. Typical background of developers or EDA folks, it's really diverse. As I mentioned before, most people have a career behind them, most people have a degree behind them, but such variety. We've had, you know, school leavers that have come here and done exceptionally well. That's unusual. This is not a program that teaches you how to grow up. It's not 3 years long, so you've got a lot of opportunity to be with your colleagues and peers and, you know, be yourself, find who you are and observe others. We're not that type of program, but we do a lot of inward looking and a lot of self-identification. So if you are very onto it, mature, self-driven, and you're 17, don't rule us out. But we aren't replacing a degree. We don't want to replace that important growth time in life. So other backgrounds, yeah, a lot of professionals, you know, white collar, blue collar, highly skilled, unskilled. It doesn't really matter. We've had folks from all walks of life, and people do incredibly well. So yeah, just such a diverse group of people. Let me check to see if there's any other questions on the chat. Okay, so how much is the tuition of the 9-week program? I could only find 1-year tuition on the website. So we only have one fee. To do our program, it's $11,000. It doesn't matter if you're a local student or an international student, it's $11,000. That's it. And that covers your preparation, so your online-based remote piece of preparation, and the boot camp. There are no extra fees. There is no resource fees. There's nothing else. It's just 11 grand. I know that's not cheap, but for what we're getting in that transition into employment, it's a great investment and it's great fun. As I mentioned to you before, the next cohort that we've got starting is in mid-March. You can enter that cohort now. We're still accepting students into that cohort. You would need to enroll fairly quickly and start your preparation ASAP. So if you are interested, get in touch with us quickly. You can enroll on our website. You can get in contact with myself and the team here at Hello at Dev Academy. Give us a call. If you want specific information from me, I'm very, very happy to have a phone call or even a physical chat with you in Wellington or Auckland. Just let us know. We are different to most schools. We have a small number of students, so we can offer one-to-one check-ins and catch-ups. So please use us for that. It's a big decision, and we want you to make the right decision and have all that information. Yeah, and we are very different to university. We're not focused on qualifications because we're focused on employment. So that 11 grand might seem expensive up front, but when you put it into context of we're taking you out of employment for a very short period of time and getting you back in at a good level. I mean, our average salary is, or our expected salary for a starting salary is around $55,000. It's a good salary to start off in as a graduate. We are seeing starting salaries of up to sort of 75, 85. That's not unusual for folks that have got a lot to bring to the sector, whether it's project management or coordination, or already in the tech space or something like this. So there's a lot of value being brought in for those folks that are doing career changes. So look, that's the end of the webinar. If you've got any further questions, do get in touch with us. Yeah, look forward to seeing some of you on bootcamp here with me in Wellington or in Auckland with Don. Kia ora, folks. Thank you.